Hi everybody, very welcome to the Mentour Pilot channel, and I hope as always that you're doing absolutely fantastic. So very sorry about the slight delay to the stream. I was watching Plane Savers and he always makes really good live streams, so I wanted to let Mikey finish his live stream before I started this one, mainly because I like watching it and also because I had my coffee here. So I am so thrilled to see as many people as it is already joining the live stream. As always, guys, I'm going to try to answer the questions as much as I possibly can. It's like these are very uncertain times. I do realize that there's a lot of people out there who are worried, who maybe have questions about their training and things like that. So I hope that you noticed that during the weekend, me and the Airline Pilot Club, we started up our website. So the airlinepilotclub.com is now live, but it's live only as a kind of single use website. It's there for information, all right? We've started it up because we want to try to find accurate and good information for you guys. Guys, maybe you are on your way into training, maybe you are in training, maybe you are a pilot right now who's facing a job loss or something like that, and we want you to be able to go somewhere, print your question in, and then me, and especially my co-founder Andy O'Shea, who was the head of training of Ryanair for many years, can then dive into our contacts and try to get interviews with people who actually know what they're talking about, so that you guys can get as good information as possible. So please, if you have questions, if you're worried, of course we're going to be talking about them today, but also go over to theairlinepilotclub.com and launch your questions in there. And if you're a flight school and you have an idea about maybe how you want to start a virtual classroom for your students for free, or anything that you want to do to help out your students, well then feel free to reach out to me. I will make our website available to you for these like lessons and for virtual classrooms, so that people from all over the world can come in and watch your ATPL theory or watch your English language course or how to write a CV or whatever it might be. We want to become a tool for help during these very uncertain times. So we're not taking on any members, we're not taking in any membership fees at the moment. We only want to be there to kind of both take in information from you, give to the authorities, because the EASA has actually told us that they need to get questions from you guys. FAA as well, of course, but also to give it out, obviously, to you. So, without further ado, guys, I'm going to launch into the questions as always. I see there's already a lot of them going through here. Now, if you haven't been here before, I always do this, I always explain how this works. So there is normally a lot of questions running through the chat, okay, which means I cannot keep up with them. I have some really good people helping me to monitor the chat, but I just cannot capture all of them. So if you have a really important question that you want to ask me, then use the super chat question. That's the little dollar sign there. That means that you will be donating to the channel, right? So you donate into the work that I do and to support me and my family in these times, actually. But also that will highlight the question for me. So I guarantee that I will answer every single one of the super chat questions, guys. So without further ado, I'll jump right into it. So Simeone Fagutu. Hi Simeone, it's great to see you here. I know that you follow my live streams a lot. I know that you're very active on my Facebook page as well, and on Instagram, so great to have you here. Hi Petter, what's the difference between the 737NG and the 737 MAX? Do they handle differently or are they the same? That's a great question. Now, I haven't flown the MAX myself yet, and I have vowed not to talk too much about the MAX either on the channel, but this I can actually answer. So the 737 MAX is essentially the same kind of airframe as the 737 next generation, but they have fitted bigger engines to it, and when they did, those engines lacked the ground clearance that was needed in order to make sure that we didn't scrape the engines if we would have a gust during takeoff, for example, or an engine failure and we needed to kind of bank the aircraft during takeoff and landing. So what they did was they moved the engines forward and up, and also because they did that and because of the shape of the engine, they actually have an aerodynamic kind of component to them, which meant that at very certain attitudes, low speed, high altitude, the fact that they actually act a little bit like wings, that caused an upwards momentum And that's where the famous MCAS comes in to counteract that momentum. And there's a lot of little things that the 737 MAX does that the NG does not. There's a little bit of partial spoiler deflection during approach as well. There are some things like that is made in order to make the MAX feel like the NG. So if all of that was stripped, the NG and the MAX would feel different from each other, and there would be probably a new type rating required. But since they have put these things in force, they handle extremely similarly, and hence why they were allowed initially to transfer pilots from the NG to the MAX with only ground school courses. Now, obviously, Boeing has come out and said that they're going to be simulator training now, so there will be simulator training in the transition. But the answer to your question is that they are, in theory, very similar, but there are some handling differences between them. And obviously, in the cockpit, the screens are different. It's more modern avionics and things like that. So there are some updates to it, but in all essence, it's very similar in aircraft. Great question to start off the evening. Jerry Mukana, I read that on the 737NG, flaps 1 forms an 8-degree angle to the wings, and the flaps 2 forms an 11-degree angle. If true, why don't they label those settings flaps 8 and flaps 11? That's a great question. I don't know. I think it's probably because they wanted commonality between the different types. So when people came from one type, even though there was a slight angle change between the flap settings on, for example, I'm not sure exactly if the angles were the same between, for example, the 737 Classic, the Jurassic, and the NG. I'm guessing it probably is differences on them. But to keep commonality and for the pilots to feel kind of, well, used to it, basically, they were more focused on that the feel was the same between them than the fact that there were slight angular differences. So that's just a theory, a film theory. But I can look into that, but I haven't gone in that deep into the maintenance manual to tell you exactly what the reason for that is. But that's a great question, Jeremy. Gadgetman36, where are all the airlines grounded planes parked? So so this differs in some of the larger airports in the United States. You can see loads of airplanes parked up, but that's just going to be a temporary measure. In fact, most of them are probably flying them out to these boneyards, putting them there temporarily. These are places that are built to take up large amount of commercial aircraft for a long time. So it's likely that they're going to transfer them over there temporarily. They will seal them up, so seal the engines, the pitot tubes, the static probes, all of that to make sure that it is properly protected from the environment. And then it is also likely that they will have to, at regular intervals, start the thing up, not the engines, but everything else, perform regular maintenance checks and things like that. I'm actually planning to try to get my hands on an engineer. So if you are an engineer out there, I would love to get in contact with you and do maybe a video about what to do with an aircraft that has stood for a long time. Like, what's the procedure to put it in there, what's the procedure to maintain it while it's standing still, and then to get it out online again. So if you're an engineer, you're watching this and you think, well, I know how that's done, then contact me. mentor.pilot@gmail.com is the email address. Or if you have the app, if you have the Mentour Aviation app, just go to submit feedback and that will send me an email. So Karsten Gill, hey Karsten, great to have you here. Hi Petter, why do different airlines have different SOPs for the 737? It's the same airplane after all. Yeah, now there is one gold standard SOP. All right, so Boeing has created standard operating procedures that you can adapt. If you're an airline and you buy your first 737, it's perfectly possible to use what we call Boeing standard, which is a way to fly the 737 following the flight crew training manual and their FCOM 1 and FCOM 2, which is normal procedures and systems description. Okay, so there is a way to do it. If everyone would do it the same, it would work. However, what you'll find is that some airlines will come from previous types, and the pilots that have flown those types will have had certain call-outs, certain procedures, certain in-company rules, like you need to be stabilized at a certain mileage from the airport, you need to have done this at a certain point, and instead of having to completely retrain the entire standard operating procedure, they would do they would kind of adapt the Boeing manual for that. So what they would do is you come in as an airline and then you say, actually Boeing, I would like to operate it like this. Is it okay if we take flaps 1 at 12 miles instead of 10 miles? Is it okay if we make this call, 500 feet go around or 500 feet continue? And then Boeing, like you send that into Boeing will look at it and they'll say, yeah, that's fine. There's no safety implication on doing that. You can keep it. And then over the time, you'll see that these SOPs start to diverge as the different requirements for the airlines changes. You will have one flying into a lot of mountainous airports up in northern Norway. Well, then they will have a set of SOPs that is good for them. And then you'll have people flying in Africa or in South America or in Europe or in the United States. And all of them will have slight differences. And they kind of diverge out like a tree, like this. And what tends to happen is that after a while, someone in the airline would say, stop. No, we cannot go this far away from Boeing. Like it doesn't make sense. We're now operating the 737 like we operated the whatever we flew before, the Saab 340. It just does not make sense. And then you can do a complete revision of your SOPs and come with what we call FCIs, flight crew instructions, which are permanent changes to the operations manual and kind of change it back in, close it in towards Boeing standard again, and that's what tends to happen. But that is an excellent question, and that actually probably warrants a video in itself. Karsten, also I want to take this time to thank you so much for being part of the Patreon crew. And you guys out there, I know there's a lot of you guys watching that are part of my Patreon crew. I just want to say how much I appreciate the support that you guys are giving me and my channel, the work I do, and my family right now, because as you can imagine, right now I'm on furlough. I've said that on previous webcasts as well. We don't know how long I'm going to be grounded without pay. And this channel and these live streams and my Patreon crew, you guys are the ones that are enabling me to continue to do the work, to continue to focus on things like the Airline Pilot Club, like the YouTube channel, find more stuff. Without you, I would have to be out looking for other ways of supporting the channel. But right now, my Patreon crew and what I'm getting through YouTube is what's maintaining me. And it's fantastic to be able to say that. And I just want to show you guys the gratitude that you guys deserve for doing that, and all of you who are now supporting me on the live stream as well. Today I did something for the first time. So I have given my patrons access to a Discord server, a special Discord server, which enables me to chat to you privately, a smaller community, which is also smaller than the Mentour Aviation app, which I'm using as well. But for the first time today, I've connected it to Zoom as well. So I had a Zoom conference with my patrons, the ones that were on at the moment, which was so cool because it meant I could have this kind of live stream, but I could see everyone's faces and people could raise their hand if they had questions. And it was kind of like sitting in a group and having a chat, which is fantastic. And these are the kind of things that I want to be able to give to my patrons as a show of gratitude. So thank you very much. All right, let's continue with the super chat question. Actually, I'm going to take a break there for the super chat questions and go up and take someone from the normal chat as well. Is there a reason a pilot would need to turn off transponders, for Stephen Gosink? It could be if the transponder is actually sending erroneous signals, for example, if there's something wrong with it. But generally speaking, no. There's no normal reason that a pilot would ever turn off a transponder. We have two different transponders, so if one is failing, we can turn over to the other one. Obviously you get your own score code, because most of our traffic control's radar is actually dependent on the transponder working and sending signals, because without that, most radar centers doesn't even have raw radar anymore. And if they do, without secondary radar, which the transponder provides, you will only see a blip. You won't ever be able to identify it. So transponder is crucial, and for commercial airlines, no. I remember back when I was doing schooling, there was some people, general aviation people, that just did not like to speak to ATC. You know, there's a lot of G airspace out in Sweden, so they will be flying out in G airspace where you don't have to speak to anyone. And then if they had to transgress a corner of a control zone, they were so timid because they're not used to talking or to air traffic control. So that they would just turn off the transponder as they passed through the corner and then turn it on again so that the air traffic control wouldn't be aware that they actually been there, which is obviously extremely dangerous to do, right? But those are the only times that I've actually seen someone turn off the transponder on purpose. So that's a great question from the normal chat there. So back then to Jake Schröder, another person that I recognize. Oh, and by the way, before I take your question there, I promised, because those of you following the Mentour Pilot Facebook page, you'll notice that I tend to put out a message about, hopefully several hours before, but sometimes just an hour before I'm starting a live stream. And I did so today as well, and I have only one comment on it. And that comment was from Paul Williams saying, give me a mention. So Paul Williams, there's your mention. Great to see you interacting with my Facebook page. Loving it. Cool. So, Jake Schröder, have you ever gotten sick while at work away from home? As a EU resident, are you able to access healthcare in other EU countries, just like at home? I have. I think I actually tweeted a little bit about it when I was up doing work as an examiner in our base outside of London, and I started feeling ill in the evening, and I got a stomach bug of some sort, really bad, the type where you kind of empty yourself from both directions, and I just, there was no way, so I just stayed in bed, called myself sick, stayed in bed for 2 days straight before it was gone, and then I could fly home again. I couldn't work. I didn't need healthcare. The only thing I needed was water, liquid, and something to eat once it all started getting over with. But the answer to your question is yes. You get a EU residence card, and with that you can go and use the healthcare of any healthcare services throughout the EU. Like it works almost flawlessly. Sometimes you might have to pay like the 40 euros or whatever the visit costs, but you can then claim that back directly from the government of the country you live in. But like I'm guessing that a lot of American viewers watching this, and obviously the healthcare costs over here, even if you do have to pay something out of your own pocket, is pocket changed, nothing in comparison to the kind of bills that you can rack up for just making a test in an American hospital. So yeah, it works very well. It's really nice, and it's a good kind of safety measure to have. I don't travel anywhere otherwise without a proper medical insurance, because you don't, like, if you feel sick, you don't want to start questioning whether or not you can afford to get your health care. Ian Smirlis, there we go. Thank you for supporting the channel. How realistic are today's gaming flight simulators like Microsoft? For instance, can someone who plays such games actually fly a plane without other training? Will you ever make a video on such games? Well, first of all, they are extremely accurate. As in, I have X-Plane 11 for my oldest son. He's 10. And unfortunately, it doesn't work now for whatever reason. I just see like this. It looks like there's something with a graphic card or some kind of corrupt file on it. But when it did work, it was very accurate. And of course, if you load on these very elaborate add-ons that you can buy, the system responses are flawless. However, unless you have built your own home simulator with the overhead panel, with the center pedestal, with the thrust levers, with the yoke, and even then you can't really simulate the feeling of flying the aircraft and the muscle memory that you need to use in order to remember the scan flows of the overhead panel. So what I would say is that you can get very far, as in, especially when it comes to system knowledge. You can learn that the hydraulic system works like this, and this is why it does that, and you can deal with problems. You can probably fly it to a certain extent as well, but whether or not I could put you as a simmer into a level D simulator and release you and just radar vector you into for a landing? Hard to say. Probably. I could probably, especially if you're using auto-land, you could probably get through it, especially if you have a lot of hours on it. But you would not be able to fly the aircraft well, because that requires actual hands-on training, and it sits in the muscle memory. So there is a yes and a no to that question. Now, Microsoft Flight Sim 2020, which is about to come out, looks absolutely gorgeous. As in, it looks insanely good. So I'm really looking forward to trying that. And I'm actually kind of contemplating. Prior to this crisis, me and my wife were thinking about buying a simulator, a fixed-based simulator, and start having like maybe weekend courses or something. I don't know if that would be something that you guys would be interested in. But doing something like that, taking in people, for people could buy a course with me. We could do something cool in the simulator for an afternoon or whatever, maybe 10 people, and then make a kind of happening out of it. And obviously I would be able to use that simulator to make videos, instructional videos for you, and videos for nervous flyers, and all kinds of stuff. So I was looking into buying that, but even one that's not certified and that doesn't have the kind of force feedback that you would need, the proper certification that you would need in order for it to actually be used for type ratings, even one of those would cost a good 100,000 euros to buy. So it would be a significant kind of investment for the company, which obviously at the moment we're just staying on hold with. But I think to answer your question about whether or not I will make a video about these things is that probably at some point I'm going to have to. But I think the way I'm going to do it in that case is I'm going to sit down with someone who actually is a good flight simmer. So maybe come home to someone and do it together with them, or do a split screen where I can instruct someone who's flying a simulator. I've actually done that on the Flight Sim channel already about a year ago. But I could do that again to interact and to show them like where they're doing things right and wrong. Ooh, and by the way, guys, I want some feedback on this, right? I'm seeing the crisis now, and I see a lot of pilots coming into financial problems. So one thing that I was contemplating on doing, and I don't know if you guys think it's a good idea or not, is on the mentorpilot.com website, I'm considering to build like a rent-a-pilot site, where, for example, if all of these flight instructors that might not be able to instruct now, theoretical instructors, things like that, but even people like me, like seasoned airline pilots, TRIs, TREs, or SFIs, would be able to come in if they need to and make themselves available. And then people like flight simmers, for example, could come in and book an hour or half an hour with a pilot from a 737 or an Airbus 320 or whatever for, I don't know, but something that would make it worth their while, basically, to kind of give a bit of income to them. And so you would set that up, you could rent them in and say like, okay, I'm going to fly the 737 in my flight sim, I would like some help with that. Can you help me to instruct me where I'm going wrong, you know? And in that case, both help you guys potentially and help them during this time and make something cool out of it. Would that be something that you guys would be interested in? Just say yes or no in the chat, please, because I don't have any cool kind of measurement. Okay, so we're saying a good idea, that's a great idea, yes, from every type of industry, do it, yes. So I am reiterating here now that this would cost money, okay? You would have to rent these pilots, that's why it would call rent a pilot. And I don't know what cost it's going to be, but it's going to have to be something for it to be worth their while to go in there. But this is something I am contemplating on doing, because I think it would be a great way of utilizing the kind of spare capacity that's sitting out there right now. Create a virtual airline as well. Yeah. All right, so cool. I'm guessing that you guys will be interested in that. In that case, I'll continue with that idea, and we'll see how interested, guys, you really are when we make it live. Okay, but I'm gonna try to reach out to some of the first officers that have just started, the ones that are worse off in this crisis, and also some of the flight instructors out there that might also be sitting on the ground now, and ask if they will be interested in participating in it. Oh, right. So Wide World West Great to have you here again with your call sign. Can you explain the different classes of airspace? Class Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, etc. Hope all is well. I can, but basically, without having prepared it and with all the details in mind, I'm not going to do it right now. This is something that I can make a video about. But Alpha, Bravo, Charlie are controlled airspace. Okay, these are airspaces that you cannot enter without a clearance from air traffic control. Alpha, if I'm not mistaken, is actually commercial IFR only. Bravo Charlie can still be VFR and IFR. And then as you go higher up and you come up to Delta, Echo, Golf, you start to get into first mixed controlled and uncontrolled, where you have some aircraft flying controlled, IFR mostly, and then you will have separation between IFR and VFR. And then as you get up to the G airspace, there is no control whatsoever. It's completely free airspace. So, but I don't want to sit here and give out exactly what the rules are. But basically from the bottom, you have the most restrictive, and then you go up to less and less restrictive as the airspace classes rises up. So Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot, and Golf. Okay? Cool. Ausbing, do you ever get road rage while flying? Flying rage. Hälsningar från Sverige. No. Road rage I try to avoid, okay, because we're flying in a 2-pilot cockpit, and it would be very detrimental to the CRM, to the cockpit resource management, to start raging. All right. Now that doesn't mean that I don't get annoyed. So if something is happening, if I forever get, like I get pilots that I fly with as well, so there will be no road rage, and definitely not on my co-pilot, because normally I'll be training, and if I'm training, they will be very sensitive to critique. So critique, I have to I have to be very careful with how I give critique, and that it has to always be something that is constructive. And I try to be positive, because I know that, I've been there myself. When I made mistakes, I knew when I made mistakes. You can see it. The only times that I can get a little bit miffed is if I see someone making, for example, mistakes, and I tell them how to do it, and then they make the same mistake again. I tell them again, and it's a repeated mistake, which would indicate that they're not listening to what I'm saying, or if bad attitude is being shown. I do not tolerate bad attitude. Okay, bad attitude will be like a dismissive attitude towards me or other member of the crew or air traffic control, or something like that, or negativity and aggressiveness from their part. But I would still never rage in flight, because that's always detrimental to safety. I would have to wait until we get down on the ground, after which a fairly somber debriefing would follow. Okay, but no. Road rage, not like the what you're thinking about when you say road rage. Okay, so Voice Bootcamp Incorporated. Do you think Airline should make some sort of adjustment to allow people to acquire miles to retain their status for 2020, those who have 12 months to earn miles? Some of us may not fly anytime soon. I think that there will be some kind of solution to this. It will be very strange for the airlines to not do something about their mileage programs, especially if you have to earn a specific amount of miles over a specific time period. Obviously, if the airline is not flying for 3 or 4 months, that will have a severe effect on you. So I think right now, guys, it's all chaos. No one really knows exactly what's going on, and no one is definitely thinking about mild programs right now. Right now they're thinking about the survival of the company, how to pay the employees, what to do with the aircraft, how to deal with the engineering problems that comes with this, the recurrent training issues that comes with this. So I'd say that the frequent flyer miles programs and stuff is probably going to be very, very low down on their agenda right now, but it will get there. You will be compensated one way or another if there is an airline still there to fly. So, Lukasz Kushniesh, do you switch from VNAV to vertical speed just to make top of descent smoother or anything similar? Keep up being absolutely fantastic, Petter. C19 will be over soon. Yes, we do. All right. So we have in RVSM airspace, as in above flight level 280, 28,000 feet, there is restrictions of how high vertical speed you can have. So VNAV would do an absolutely fantastic job in capturing the altitude. No matter what vertical speed we're keeping in VNAV, it would still make a nice smooth transition onto it. However, if we're very, very light, for example, which we are right now, unfortunately, if you have been clear to climb to flight level 320, for example, you just press VNAV, you have 10 people on board. The aircraft will climb with 3,000 feet per minute. Okay, and it will do so until it's about 500 feet to go, in which case it will just smoothly lower its nose and level off perfectly. Now, if there is an aircraft 1,000 feet above us, a flight level 330, and the TCAS notices someone climbing towards them with 3,000 feet per minute, 1,500 feet below them, it will issue a resolution advisory, and you will get a climb, disconnect, full resolution advisory procedures. If you want to see how that's done inside of the Mentour Aviation app, I have a whole collection in 360 there. You can watch that. Anyway, so we don't want that. And the way that we make sure that that doesn't happen is that we have a rule that you can have maximum 2,000 feet per minute, 2,000 to go. Actually, we start even earlier than that. So 3,000 feet per minute, 3,000 to go, 2,000 feet per minute, 2,000 to go, and 1,000 feet per minute, 1,000 to go. And when you're very light, the only way to achieve that is to switch from VNAV to vertical speed, slow down the climb rate to then let the aircraft capture the altitude in vertical speed. So that's the answer to that. But if we're climbing to a higher altitude and we have a full aircraft, well then the aircraft might be at only 900 feet per minute, last 1,000 feet, in which case you will just leave it in VNAV and let VNAV do a nice clean job. VNAV is the default, mode, right? We always want to either go back into VNAV or default back to VNAV whenever we can. And that's because VNAV has built-in restrictions. If we have an altitude restriction, for example, it will monitor that. If we have an at or above or an at or below altitude during climb or descent, it will monitor that and it will make sure that we do it. Vertical speed and level change are stupid autopilot modes. They just do what we tell them, right? VNAV is a smart autopilot mode, which will actually take these kind of restrictions into account, which is why we use it as a default. And that was a longer answer than I was hoping to make. I hope you like it, guys. And yes, I also hope that the C19 will be over soon. Because I have a bit of cabin fever, guys. Like you wouldn't believe. Actually, it's a relief to do this live stream, to talk to people, even though I can't see you. 10 days I've been stuck in house now. So the whole family is here. I haven't left the properties more than just throwing away a bit of trash for 10 days straight. And the government here in Spain has just announced another 15 days on top of the first 15 days. So I've done 10 of a minimum 30 days. So a third of the way through. And like they say that after day 10 it starts to be hard, and I believe them. There's something about not being able to move around, not even take a walk out in the woods, which I love to do. I always go out for long walks and I cannot do that. There's something about that is very unnerving. Now I'm really lucky because I live in a reasonably big house with a big garden, which means that I'm out and I do like an hour of walking around the house. It takes 40 seconds and you can do 133 rounds around my house in 1 hour. My wife has checked that out as well. So even though I can go out and I can do that, get some fresh air, move around and stuff, there's still that feeling of being cooked up and not, have the ability to go anywhere. Hopefully you don't have to go through it. Fortunately, we're all healthy and my wife is reasonably happy and my kids are happy, which otherwise it would be a nightmare. But there's something to it, Right. More questions here. Man, I'm falling behind here. I talk too much. So, Robert Parker, thank you very much for your support. The A380s had trouble filling seats when times were great. When things go back to normal, will they be the last to fly, or there's a possibility that this grounding Emirates will end the program earlier than expected? I think that the time is over. I think that one of the effects of the C-19 is going to be the inevitable early grounding of aircraft like the Boeing 757, the Boeing 767, not the 747, because that will be used in cargo. There will be some cargo utilizations of the earlier types as well, but the Airbus 380, unlikely. I think that the ones on order are probably going to be delivered. Maybe it depends on if those airlines actually survives this thing or not. There is a question about which airlines we will actually have after this. Like I said on my video on Friday, that there is light after this tunnel. Right? The airline industry, providing that this doesn't completely change the travel patterns of everyone, which I don't think it will do, there will be just as big of an industry there after this as before it. Especially if we're only talking 3-4 months, right? Travel patterns doesn't change in 3-4 months. But the way that the industry is, and the cost intensity of the industry, the way that airlines that might not have had good economy before will be in a really, really poor economy now, they will not survive. So there will be bankruptcies. And from those bankruptcies, there will be gaps in the market. And those gaps in the market, they will be filled with other airlines. That's what I'm saying, that the industry will look different. The players will look different. But the industry will still be there. They will still need pilots and so on. So I think that once this is over, we are going to see airlines shredding everything that costs too much money. Things that they couldn't just motivate to do before. They will use this as an excuse to get rid of the stuff that they should have gotten rid of anyway. All right. So because they know that the pilots will understand that they're going to have to be retrained. They will not be able to motivate keeping those things for the shareholders and stuff like that. So there will be bankruptcies. There will be airlines that will have a different fleet than before, and there will be airlines that had good economy before that will be able to fill the vacuum of the airlines that have gone bankrupt. So you will see huge expansions on some airlines after this, which would go in to take over market shares where they can. So I think that it's definitely some huge turbulence coming up in the market in the next few years. Especially the 2020, 2021 is going to be turbulent. What I mean by that is going to be rough for people in the industry, for people joining the industry. But I think, again, from 2021 to 2022, providing that we have the C-19 under control, that curve that I showed on my video is going to continue. Now, I personally hope that we will be able to come up with some kind of good environmentally friendly or more environmentally friendly alternative to what we're doing right now. As in, maybe we'll be able to go into hybrid drives on some of the smaller commuter aircraft, maybe even some of the bigger ones, help during takeoff, landing, taxi, definitely, stuff like that. But the traveling will continue because we want to do that as a race. So I think that, to answer your question, which I've done now for a very long time, yeah, I do think that the ones that cannot be motivated economically wise is going to disappear, and the Airbus 380 is one of those. Søren, thank you very much for your support. Now, your question didn't come through for some reason, so go to the Mentour Aviation app, right? Have a profile there, go to submit feedback, and just before you send off your question with the headline super chat, and I will answer it to you in there, right? Paul, hi, just a little support for the channel and say that you rekindled my enthusiasm and given me the motivation to revalidate my PPL after 19 years away from aviation. Well, that's great. That's really nice to hear. Like, you guys are lovely. I'm getting so much nice messages from people who credit me with their success, which they shouldn't. Because what I keep telling everyone is the only thing I do is I tell my story, and I talk about things from my perspective, and then I try to give back a little bit of the enthusiasm that I felt and I do feel for the industry myself. All right, and then if you guys took up something and you've lost weight or whatever it might be, you've overcome your fear of flying, or you've retaken your PPL, that's you. that's the energy that you guys already have. That's what I'm trying to tell you guys, that within every one of you there is so much positive energy, so much potential, so much stuff that you can do, but we have to grab it. So you have to see, like for now example, all right, there will be a majority of humankind that is going to sit and think that they are now a victim of what's going on. There will be a few, especially the ones that don't have much money, the ones that don't have enough money for food, that will be in some real dire straits. And we who do have to reach out and help. Okay, I really mean this. In your community, I don't mean that you should go and give away all your money to everyone. I mean that in your community, there's going to be groups of people, neighbors, people you know, relatives, that will need your help. Make sure that you take this opportunity to reach out to them and help. Because it's in times like this that we build up the kind of community around us that we want to see. Okay? But apart from that, apart from the people who actually have to fight to survive, those of us who still have a little bit more than that, we can use this. Maybe it's time to move on to a different job. Maybe it's time to take up that university course that you were thinking about doing. Maybe it is time to go for that aviation training after this. Maybe something positive can come out of this. Like I am thinking, for example, now I've been talking about making a course for nervous flyers for years. But the thing is, it takes a lot of planning and execution in order to do it properly. And you, as a full-time pilot and a full-time YouTuber, there's just never really that time to start a project like that. But now, there's loads of time. I'm going to take this opportunity to start to get that done. And I've been thinking about other things. Like I've been thinking about taking up my manual and just do a full technical course about the 737. Obviously not a full technical course as you would buy on a typewriting, but me explaining the systems, go through what are the dimensions of the 737, what is the turning rate, how big is it, how wide is it, what does it look like it do, and just go chapter by chapter of the 15 chapters that we have. Technical descriptions. I'll use my excellent graphical designer Dominic to make some cool diagrams, and I'll make a course on the 737 for you guys, for people who are just interested in the 737, not for a typewriting, because I'm that kind of like that will take years to do a full CBT. But the kind of videos that I do, go through the 15 sections and put it up on mentorpilot.com. I have the time to do that now, and I'm going to take this opportunity to use this for something positive, for something good, then you guys can do that as well. So once again, congratulations to taking back your PPL. You're going to have real fun with it. Mikas Balevicius, thank you very much. Evan W. My flight school closed due to COVID. Now I will lose month of good weather, days and hundreds of hours. How do I keep motivating during this time? Yeah. So this is exactly the kind of question that we were anticipating through the Airline Pilot Club. We want to try to do stuff for you guys. So that's why I'm saying that I'm going to reach out, and I'm going to recommend flight schools out there to use our website to do like free seminars to keep you thinking about the theory, to keep you up to date, maybe to prepare you for your next step, maybe do courses in, for example, how to write a good CV, how to behave during an interview, what to do during group exercises, what do you need to think about in order to give a good, portray yourself in a good way, and also just general kind of, theoretical stuff. So that's the kind of things that we will be trying to do. Then, of course, say that, your flight school, I don't know, if it's complete lockdown like we have now, there's not much they can do. You can go out and you can do procedural training using your own home simulator, for example. That you can do. So IFR, they're quite good for that, for doing like NDB holdings and VOR holdings and ILS approaches and stuff, just to keep the scan going and things. But when it comes to losing actual flight time and training, you just have to make sure that you have a really good discussion with your flight school, and that they are helpful and understandable, and that they maybe give you a little bit of time for free in order to refresh yourself when you get back. These are the kind of discussions that you need to have with your flight school. And we are going to do our damnedest from the Airline Pilot Club to kind of push the schools that are doing that and show them off and say, listen, look at this school. They're doing this, in order to highlight that to other schools that might be not taking these kind of initiatives, to show them the light, the right way. Okay, and I have to say, Evan, as well, best of luck with your training. Reach out if there's any help I can give you, any motivation I can give you and stuff. I'd be loving to help. So, Joshua McCloskey, what temperature is the cargo hold of passenger aircraft kept at, and can pilots adjust this temperature? So, there tends to be both heated and unheated part of the cargo. For example, the 737, the forward cargo hold is where we keep animals if they're traveling in big cages, and that is kept. I think actually we have heating in the back one as well, but that's just recirculated air from the passenger cabin that gets recirculated through the lower part of the cabin and then out. We do not have temperature controls for that part, but it's kept at a decent temperature. It's probably a little bit colder than it would be in the passenger cabin, but we're talking maybe, let's say it's 17 degrees, 16, 17 degrees. Patchy, come. Patchy is not happy being by himself down here. He wanted to come and say hello to you guys. And I have to apologize as well because Patchy hasn't been in the last 2 videos. He didn't want to be part of it. I think he's getting a little bit tired of us humans since we're in the house all the time now. And as you can see, he's not a fan of me speaking all the time either. He just wanted to lie in my lap and get cuddled. So that's what we'll do. You get to stay here, Patchy. There we go. Hi, Mentor from CA3340H3993. That's a handy nickname for you there. Hi, Mentor. At what age do airlines usually retire aircraft at? Should you be worried about if you arrive at the airport and find that your aircraft is 35 or 40 years old? There's a certain number of cycles and to a certain extent hours. They get their full checks. They have temporary checks. Okay, it says that something happened to my live stream here. I don't know, guys. Can you still see me? Just tell me if you can still see me, okay? Because I just noticed that something happened and my internet might be shutting off. So just say yes if you can see me. Okay, still good. Cool. Right. Yeah. So like I was saying, the aircraft will be rechecked. And when they reach a certain amount of sectors and a certain amount of cycles, they will go through like very extensive checks where they basically check through everything. They x-ray the components, the things that have the safe life of the aircraft, like the ones that we never change. They are being checked to make sure that there are no metal fatigue or any cracks or anything like that. And everything else is being changed at regular intervals. So if you fly an aircraft that is 40 years old, very few parts of that aircraft is actually going to be 40 years old. Almost nothing. Okay, so this means that if that aircraft has been following its maintenance schedule set by the aviation authorities and the manufacturer, it is a safe aircraft to fly on. You don't have to be worried about that. The only thing that you need to be worried about is that you fly with reputable airlines. Like if you fly for airlines that are okay to fly in the European Union, that are not in the blacklist, then you are fine. But if you fly with aircraft for airlines that are in the blacklists, they're on there for a reason, and one of those reasons might be that it doesn't follow the maintenance schedules that they should. And in that case, it's not good. All right. But the age of the aircraft, if it's a really old aircraft, for example, does not matter. So, Natalie Olson, great to see you here, Natalie. Greeting. What is the purpose of the altimeter when planes come into land? How do they figure it out? Well, I mean, obviously, the altimeter. I'm guessing that you're not asking why we have an altimeter, because the honest answer to that is that we need to know how high up we are. On like the altimeter setting, the pressure that we get from the ambient pressure that is on the airport is important because it differs. So if we don't have the right pressure set, it means that the altimeter is not showing the right altitude. And we set, for example, our minimums, as in the lowest we can come on an approach without seeing the airport and safely do a go around, based on that pressure setting. So the altimeter is an essential part of flying the aircraft, even if it's not an instrument. Even when you fly VFR, it's very important that the altimeter is set and it's set to the correct pressure. We can talk more about that in the app if you have further questions, because I'm not sure if I'm answering the right question here. So, do you know Stefan Edberg and Mats Wilander from tennis? Not personally, but of course I know about them. They're legends in Sweden. Everyone knows who they are. like Björn Borg, Stefan Edberg, Mats Wilander. You're not Swedish if you don't know who those guys are. So, Oleg 250, do you know about Helios flight 522? What happened? Yeah, I do know what happened there as well. So, without going into some huge details, basically the aircraft had undergone scheduled maintenance the day before the flight, and as part of that, the engineers had put the cabin altitude selector from auto, which means that the cabin altitude is controlled by our two pressure controllers, to manual, which is where you set it yourself, right? It has that setting because sometimes the controllers go crazy. It happens very rarely, but they could have a malfunction in them. In that case, we have to be able to set it manually. So for some reason, it was set to manual. Maybe they were doing a pressurization test, something with the pressurization system wasn't working and they were checking it, and someone forgot to put it back on. Okay, so it wasn't back to auto. Now, the scan flow that we do when we set everything up before flight includes checking that switch is in auto, but it wasn't on the checklist, right? After the Helios 522, it was put on the checklist as a mandatory item. Wait, I'm just going to let Pachi out. Pachi. Can you let out Pachi, William? Okay, so that was the first thing. That was what kind of set it all up. Okay, the guys took off and didn't recognize neither in the after takeoff check that the pressurization wasn't working as normal. That's a mandatory part of the after takeoff check, is to check that the pressurization is working normal. They didn't check it properly at the 10 checks either, which is the next kind of check that almost all airlines do to verify that the pressurization is working properly. Because you want to do it at 10,000 feet because you can still fix it then without getting an altitude warning, cabin altitude warning. And then they continued to climb. Now the aircraft was not pressurizing at all. So that means that when the cabin, who's always a little bit behind the actual aircraft because of leakage, you have a pressure in the aircraft, and then as you take off and start climbing, it's not going to be 10,000 feet when the aircraft passes 10,000 feet. When the aircraft passes 10,000 feet, it's going to be like maybe 9,000 feet, and it's going to slowly follow the aircraft up. So as they were climbing, they got the cabin altitude warning, which sounds like bam, 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 bam. The training that we have stipulates that as soon as you hear that, you put the mask on. All right, no questions asked. You put your mask on, then you establish communication, and then you start looking at what the problem is. Now, the problem with that warning was that at the time, the same warning was used for the takeoff configuration warning. So that's a warning that warns us if we set takeoff thrust and we haven't set some critical systems like flaps, trim, PSU lights. No, actually that's PSU. No, but flaps, trim, there is leading edge and trailing edge, skew protection, things like that. If the aircraft feels that something is wrong at that point, when we set takeoff thrust, we get the same oral warning. Bam, bam, bam. Okay, but obviously that warning is only available on the ground. Okay, anytime that you take off and it's in the air and you get that oral warning, it means that it's a pressurization problem. But the problem with pressurization problems is that even at lower altitude, if you are starting to climb up, I think they were at 17,000, 18,000 feet when this happened, you can start to get hypoxia very quickly, actually. So that means that your sense of logic is not working as good as it should be. So the captain thought that they had a takeoff configuration warning, and that it obviously was faulty because it shouldn't be on in the air. The first officer doesn't seem to have thought much more of it. The captain went back, tried to pull a circuit breaker to get rid of it, and then fell unconscious, apparently, according to the report. First officer would have fallen unconscious soon after that. They would have been cleared to an altitude in autopilot. The aircraft continued to climb, both pilots unconscious. The masks drops at 14,000 feet, so the masks would have been on in the back, but the masks only have about 14-15 minutes of oxygen in them, not even that, 12 to 14. So the passengers would have put that on. They would have gotten that, but since they just kept climbing and they didn't do an emergency descent, that oxygen would have run out after a while, and they would have been unconscious. So this is the tragic kind of event, the tragic chain of event that led to this. Now, as they were traveling through airspaces, obviously they were not in contact with air traffic control, so air traffic control eventually sent up fighters. The fighters came up, they could see movement in the cockpit, which must have been one of the flight attendants, which they found later on in the cockpit as well, which is a poor guy who had his PPL and wanted to become a pilot. Now, how he could have been conscious is probably due to the fact that they have oxygen tubes. So he could have gotten a hold of a portable oxygen tube and kind of tried to get into the cockpit. He eventually got into the cockpit, but it was too late. They had already run out of fuel. So he took over the controls. One engine flamed out, the other engine flamed out, and as a PPL student without any practice on the 737, to kind of dead stick a 737 down on landing, that would have taken some serious Chuck Yeager skills. So it is just a perfect example of where a chain of events happens. One little thing leads to one little thing, and if that's not, that Swiss cheese model, where you have kind of barriers, safety barriers, but they're hole in the safety barriers, and if all of these holes lines up, well, then you have an accident. This is a perfect example of that, because if anything would have, if that button would have been in manual and they would have done the before start scan correctly, they would have noticed it there. Nothing would have happened. If they would have done the after takeoff checks correctly, put it back on, nothing would have happened. If they would have done the 10 checks correctly and they would have noticed something was wrong, they would have done the kind of check, the scan, and they would notice it, they would switch over, nothing would have happened. If they would have put the masks on when they got the first warning, nothing would have happened. So there's all of these safety barriers that just out of some real misfortune and misunderstanding, possible lack of knowledge, the way that the aircraft was designed with the warnings, everything of that lined up to make this happen, which is tragic to say the least. And that's once again a long explanation. Grant Rennie, thank you very much for the hot dog. I need it, man. Stay safe and well, everyone, from Grant Rennie as well. Oleg 250, if you didn't know English, could you survive in Denmark? If you know Danish, then you would. If you don't know Danish and English, you would probably survive, but it would be hard to communicate. That's all. That's the best I can give you, man. So, Thomas Albert, hi Mentor. Do you think there will be an increase in demand for cargo pilots? Would you switch to the cargo side? I don't think there will be an increase in demand. I think there will be a fairly constant demand. Now, it all depends on what happens with the world economy, because if the world economy starts going down, well, then the need for cargo is going to come down as well, which means that there will be less cargo flown, which means there will be less cargo pilots. But for now, the cargo pilots are fairly safe because there's actually more cargo flying now than ever. And you can see airlines like Emirates, for example, they're just converting their passenger traffic over to cargo, and they'll continue to fly their cargo but no passengers. So yes, and the answer to your question is yes. If I need to fly cargo, I'll fly cargo, no question about it. But I'm still hoping that this is going to blow over fairly soon. So VT5 Anas S, am I paranoid that I refuse to fly overseas on Flight Simulator? Can the 757 come back to the max as the 757 has more ability for larger engines? You were a little bit paranoid if you refuse to fly overseas on Flight Simulator, because Flight Simulator is by nature fairly safe. The second question, can the 757 come back? I wouldn't think so. It's more likely that Boeing would sit down and make a new type of aircraft, completely new type of aircraft, than it would be for them to take home an old model and just stick new engines on it. The 757 has some fundamental differences in its aerodynamics that are not made for the kind of traffic that is flown now. It's a beautiful aircraft. I love the way that it looks, but it's not aerodynamic enough. It wouldn't make any sense to refit that aircraft with new engines. It's much better for them to redo a completely new aircraft. So I don't think so. Because the MAX will come back as well. I mean, now Boeing is getting a little bit of a breather for the MAX. They can concentrate on recertifying it without being in the kind of public eye all the time. And also I think that the airlines have probably backed off a little bit, while the airlines would have would have been really pressed to get those aircraft quickly now for the summer season. All of a sudden, not so much hurry. It's actually better to not have these aircraft than having to pay money for them. So I think that this probably gives a little bit of breathing room, and we'll see what happens. So, man, I'm so behind now. Guys, I think I don't need any more super chat questions now, because I'm coming up to an hour here now, and I'm still hopelessly behind. How fast can you be going when you exit the runway after landing? So normally the really high speed exits, you can take it about 60 knots. Okay, but 45 knots is the standard for a high speed exit, and otherwise, if it's a 90-degree angle, we use 10 knots. We always use 10 knots if it's more than 45 degrees of an angle that we need to turn. So, Balai, shout out Kumar. Hi Balai, great to have you here. What about Corona survival of aviation, if possible? It's possible, yeah, it is. Now, Balai, I have answered this in detail in the video that I did on Friday, so you can just go back and watch that one and see what my thoughts are about it. But yes, aviation will survive, and it will look different, and there will be new players, some old players, but it will survive, yes. Carl Furstenberg. Hi Carl. When you drive home from flying, do you feel like you're still flying then? No, I don't. It's actually a great, I have about a 35-minute drive home from my local airport here in Girona, and I love that drive. I put on a great podcast, or I listen to a Skillshare course or something like that, and I just use it to wind down. And I enjoy the driving. I mean, I drive my Porsche as well. It handles so beautifully. It's so nimble and agile, especially if you compare it to a 737, which is not so nimble and agile. So no, I don't feel like that. I really, really like doing it. And actually, I almost feel a tear coming out of my eyes now when I'm thinking that I can't go out and drive anything, and I haven't done so for a week. I'm going to literally... I was given 2 months of unpaid leave as part of this new seasonal deal that we're on here in Girona. And I was planning to do so much thing, and I thought 2 months, imagine what I can do with 2 months. And now it's going to turn into me just sitting in my house for 2 months straight, literally. It's unfathomable. But I really hope that we can start turning things around here in Spain, because the situation is really dire now. So, Wesley Powell, great to see you, Wesley. Thank you for your support as always. I'm always curious about healthcare in other countries. Our healthcare system in America is garbage. Just curious, what tax rate do people generally have in order for free healthcare to be possible? Right, so the way that the taxation system worked in Sweden and here in Spain and all of the countries that I've been living and paying taxes in, is that if you're in a low income bracket, you tend to pay quite low income tax. I think here in Spain, it's between 15 and 20% for the lowest income brackets. And that's up to maybe 20,000 euros, as in about equivalent in dollars, $20,000. And then as you go up above that, maybe $35,000, $40,000 per year, you jump up a step to 25% income tax. There's some other fees as well on top of that, but that's about it. And then you jump over that, then you go up another step, so 30, 35. In Sweden, it starts at 30%, so even the lowest income have 30% tax, which is quite high. Then it stays there for longer. And then as you go higher and higher, you will pay more and more part of your income in tax. I think I have a full tax pressure of about 43%. So that means out of my salary, 43% goes to the state. And that is what's paying for schools, for everyone, for roads, for healthcare, for everything that the state provides, police, all of that. In Sweden, you have 2 years of maternity leave, almost 2 years of maternity leave included in it. You have free food in the schools. You have free university studies. The only thing you pay for is your accommodation and your books. And I mean, I got my flight training by the Swedish state as part of a government-funded program. So you get a lot for your money. And what you do get, which is hard to put a price on, is the feeling of security and safety and the equalness of people. having, you don't have to worry about, if you get sick, you get healthcare. If you need an MRI, you get an MRI. If you need cancer treatment, you're not going to bankrupt your family if you don't have health insurance from your employer. So having lived in those kind of systems my entire life, I find it very hard to understand that there are like first world countries, developed economies that do not give it. I honestly have a problem, like when they call Bernie Sanders like a socialist or a communist. He will be considered right-wing politician in Sweden, for example, like proper right-wing. Well, not proper right-wing. He will probably be a social democrat-ish, which is like, yeah, the norm. That's what you would expect. But I also understand that everyone has the right for their own opinions and that the cultural systems are different in different countries. So I'm not getting into what I think is right and wrong. I'm just saying that this is my view. This is what I'm used to and what I've come to expect. And I think that in situations where everything is going well with the economy, all of these systems work well. But what will be very interesting to see now is what's going to happen in a situation where there's severe pressure on the healthcare system, where the state, or there's a huge economical downturn, and there needs to be a strong state to come in and like give out money to people, essentially, or stimulate the economy through whatever means there might be. That's, I think, where a strong, good. Okay, it looks like I still. Okay. Yeah, okay. So it must be something wrong with my. Okay, this is just some issue with my YouTube here. So more questions. John Willis, thank you very much. John Ellis, Captain. The Crispigny of QF32 likely last 38. Yeah, I know, it's sad, but the 380 is definitely on its way out. Smart silence, accidentally on the center line while on a car. No, the only time that I accidentally have done anything like that has been when I've been switching between driving in the UK and in Sweden or in Spain, and I found myself on the wrong side of the road just momentarily before it's like, back again. That's only happened once. But I can see where the problem comes in. Brad Sewer, maybe see the pupper. No, he has left the building, literally, because he needed to go out and pee. So, Sean Lynch, could you please put up your discount link for a private VPN subscription? I think it's fairly easy. I think it is nordvpn.org/pilot, if I'm not mistaken. Try that. Otherwise, it's nordvpn.org/Mentour Pilot, but I think it's just Pilot. So do that. I'm going to do... guys, I know that you have been complaining, or someone have been complaining about NordVPN as being a sponsor. Now, taking sponsorships for the channel is absolutely essential. So NordVPN, I've talked to them. They have assured me that whatever data problems and data breach problems they had during the last year has been well sorted. And so that there should not be any issue at all with them anymore, and from what I can tell, it's a very good service. So I will continue to let them be sponsored, and there will be a new sponsored video with NordVPN fairly soon. Okay. Stephen Gosing, what gets you and your family money faster? Sending money this way or on Patreon? I also sign up on Patreon for 15. Oh, Stephen, thank you very much for your support. Patreon is by far the best, all right? Because anything that goes in here, or even when you buy stuff off my app, the stuff goes through Google, which takes 30% of the amount straight off. Patreon, I think, take 5%. So Patreon is by far the best and the most secure way of doing it. But thank you very much. So Mark van Loo, just some support for the channel. Great work, Peter. Hope to see 19 is over quickly so you can fly again. Yeah, I hope so as well. I'm so looking forward to the cockpit now. I haven't seen it for close to 1.5 months now. I was in the sim the last week. I was supposed to fly. Deanna, good luck with your job, mentor. We're all in this together. I'm worried about my small business, but trying to stay positive. Yeah, I know. All of you guys will be impacted by this in one way or another. I mean, the first ones to get a hit is always the aviation industry. with that comes the tourism industry, which that comes the hotels, all of the hospitality. This obviously hits very hard against small restaurants, small anyone that has to do with a lot of people coming into the store is going to be hit by this. So we are going to see some huge, massive waves hitting the economy from this. And I'm really hoping that this will be over soon, so it doesn't impact too badly on you guys, because it just sucks basically. So, Oleg 250, if you only knew Swedish, could you survive in Denmark? Yeah, and the Danish tend to understand the Swedes, but the Swedes doesn't necessarily understand the Danish. That's my experience anyway. But they are very different, right? I think that the difference is almost as big as between... what I say is that Catalan and Spanish, they have about the same difference as Swedish and Danish do. So it's quite a lot, it's a lot of difference between them. And there is a super chat question, last one here, then I'll take some questions from the normal chat as well before I give off for today. So I just have to scroll up here to find that last super chat question. Oh man, there's so much chat questions that I'm missing. Oh, I hope that you guys are active in the Mentour Aviation app, by the way, because I can't see them here. Because most of these questions can be answered not only by me but by other professional pilots, of which there are quite a few in the Mentour Aviation app. So let's see if I can find that last super chat question, because I cannot see it here. Can some nice soul put in a $1 super chat question just so it puts Grant Rennie's super chat question up so I can see it, because I can't see the lowest bar here for some reason, and it's been going out of the chat. Okay, so there it is something. Petter, thanks for all your work. That's from me and Jill. A Grant Rennie. So that was just a piece of pizza, which was great. Ian, thank you very much for all of your support as well throughout all of this. So I will take a few questions from the normal chat now. I know that you've been waiting patiently. So, does the runway lights annoy when taking off? Like boom, 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 boom. No, not really. They don't annoy me. They do give a bit of vibration. So what we tend to do is we kind of just put ourselves in the center line and then maybe put ourselves a decimeter or so on the side of it to avoid those kind of constant boom, 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 boom coming. But they don't annoy, and they don't damage anything either. So. Petter, I hope you and your family is well and stays well. Well, thank you, Jason. It's great to hear. We are well. Everyone is healthy so far. Our grandmom, which is who we're really caring for in this crisis, is well as well. She is also confined to her house, but she has a huge orchard, which is happy and walk around. And XX Dog XX, shout outs to the XX Dog. Mentor, can you listen to music in the cockpit from Mark Pollack? No, you cannot. Right? We do not listen to anything else than air traffic control when we're in the cockpit. And guys, I see there's some new super chat questions coming out. You're the best from Ron Sarelli. Thank you very much. That's really appreciated. And Petter, thanks for all of the work that you do. Lemon Lust, what happens if 3 out of 4 engines flames out and your thrust reversers deploy? What would you do? Well, if the thrust reversers deploy on the engines that have failed, they don't make much of a difference, actually. If the thrust reverser deploys on the only engine that I have, it's going to be really hard to control the aircraft, especially at high altitude. At lower altitude, it's still okay, but obviously if you have 3 engines failed and 1 on thrust reverser, you are not in a good place. So it's just about trying to fly the aircraft. If you can control it, put it down somewhere where you will kill as little people as possible, and not hurt anyone around you. That's what you have. Hopefully there's a runway around and maybe you can land on that. But those kind of questions where like I get questions like, what if you've just taken off and all engines fail? What would you do? Well, you just land the aircraft. You do whatever it takes in a catastrophic situation like that. Just look at Sully. Sully had exactly that. He had 2 engines, both flamed out. He realized that he doesn't have enough altitude to turn back. It takes about 2,000 feet to make an airline 180 return. Didn't have that possibility. He was too far away. Looked at Teterboro and all the others. They were too far away. So he did what I just said. Like, okay, so where can I put this aircraft down without making any third-party damage? The Hudson River. So Now let's just try to do as good of a water landing as is humanly possible, which is what he did. But that's kind of what the deal is, you know. You'll get that hopefully never, and maybe once in a lifetime, and you just hope that at that point you take the right decision and you think about all of the right things, and you're in a great team that can support it and make it work. So do they ever give you the Kobayashi Maru situation in the simulator? Yeah, there are, you know, we give people situations where they have to ditch. Like when you take off, you get dual engine failures too far away from the runway, and they have to ditch. That's not the Kobayashi Maru though, because you can still survive a ditching provided you do it right. But yeah, we do give them those. But that's not measured, as in we wouldn't grade it. It's just to give them a feeling of how it would look and give them some instruction of how to think and how to prioritize, so that they have a little bit, if something catastrophic like that would happen, at least they would have kind of like, oh shit, yeah, I've seen this before, let's get the APU started, let's make sure that we've closed up, that there's no, like the outflow valve is closed before we land, let's take up that checklist and just read that and prioritize getting the cabin crew ready to, you know, the no time emergency, things like that. Good. So guys, that's it. That is 1 hour and 16 minutes, which is a new record for a live stream. If you guys are interested in this t-shirt, by the way, I think here below the live stream I have links to my Teespring store where you can get awesome t-shirts or a cap or a mug or something absolutely fantastic, and everything has absolutely fantastic somewhere on it. So without further ado, I'm going to sign off here. I'll go over to the Mentour Aviation app and say hello. Now I have to apologize to the users of the app. I haven't been very active as I should be lately in there. That's because I've been working really hard on APC, but obviously I have a lot of time over now, so hopefully I'll be able to head over there very, very soon. Have an absolutely fantastic day wherever you are, guys. There, see you. There's going to be more videos coming out very, very soon, and yeah, thanks for all your support. Bye-bye.